Welcome back to Next Gen Console Watch, our show covering everything happening with the latest gaming hardware. I'm Daemon, and this week I'm joined by Ryan McCaffrey, host of Podcast Unlocked.
Howdy.
And Max Scoville, host of Podcast Beyond.
Hey.
And this week, happy Christmas. War is over. Console wars, at least. You may have seen several headlines this week declaring the console war is over. This is because of some new comments that Phil Spencer has been sharing in a new interview. We'll get to that in just a moment. But before we dive into this week's episode of Next Gen Console Watch, we've got some exciting news. Over at IGN Entertainment, we've just launched a brand new podcast network called Geek Media. This new network brings together all your favorite shows from IGN Entertainment and our partners all under one roof. Now, nothing is changing for you. Wherever you watch or listen to this show, you'll still be getting this show and all the IGN shows every week. Nothing's changing on your end. This is just a new umbrella network that all of our shows are going to be wrapped up into. And as Count Dooku said, this is just the beginning. In the coming months, you'll hear a lot more about Geek, including the launch of new shows, live events, even some unique scripted series. So stay tuned. Okay. The Console Wars has a ceasefire quietly already been messaged out behind enemy lines. Phil Spencer was giving an interview with Xbox Era this week, and he was talking about bringing Xbox games to competitors' platforms. And Phil said, I would love to make all of the money for all the games that we ship, right? Obviously, we make more on our own platform, meaning they make more if they sell an Xbox version of a game, of Indiana Jones, than a PlayStation 5 version. He says, it's one of the reasons that investing in our own platform is important. But there are people, whether it's their libraries on a PlayStation or Nintendo, whether it's they like the controller better, they just like the games that are there. I'm not trying to move them all over to Xbox anymore. That's a pretty telling statement. He's got more to say here. Oh, man, that's Phil right there. But first, I wanted to get your thoughts on that, Ryan. Xbox is not trying to get players who are happy playing games over somewhere else. They're not trying to get them over to Xbox anymore. What do you think? In your opinion, is this whole console war thing over?
Yeah, do we have to stop doing this show now? Like, are we done? I'm not sure. But
yeah, we're free.
I hope not. This is fun. But yeah, I mean, this has been coming ever since, by Phil's own admission, they lost what were in his words, the most important generation to lose,
right.
Which was the Xbox One generation, which of course was all the more painful for Xbox fans because they'd just come off of the Xbox 360 generation, which had won them so many fans after getting their foot in the door with the original Xbox, which was a great console that lost money on every one they sold, but Microsoft knew that was part of the plan. We just need to get our foot in the door. And then the 360, they kicked that door in, and they had a seat at the table. They were number one in North America. Sony eventually overtook them from global sales, but North America was Xbox 360 territory, and they squandered all of it. I mean, we don't have to go through the whole history again.
Right.
But ever since then, as people have, as gaming has gone more digital and you've got your digital purchases on one ecosystem or another, yeah, it's the same strategy. The traditional quote unquote console war strategy doesn't work anymore. I mean, even Sony's starting to sell stuff on PC as the costs of game development go up and up and up. Nintendo's still pretty effectively being Nintendo, and we'll see if they're able to keep that going with Switch 2. But yeah, I mean, it is over. I mean, it makes sense that eventually Phil's got to say, look, we've spent years trying to get people to come back to our platform, and it's just not happening. I mean, they lost 30 million people after the Xbox 360 era. That's hard to recover from, and they haven't. And now, so this situation is of their own making, but here they are. And I do think, I've said this before, I think it is, even though they are quote unquote to blame for their situation, it still kind of maybe favors them in the long run. I'm not saying they'll win, but it favors their business strategy in the long run, because this new generation of gamers, Gen Alpha, like the whole console loyalty thing is kind of an older generation thing. It's the younger generation is used to growing up with every streaming service, every game on any device that's convenient to them. And that's now the position that Microsoft, the strategy that Microsoft is adopting. And it does seem like in the long run that's going to work for them. And, is it are they? I hope they're going to continue making great hardware, because I know I'm rambling here, but the last point I'll make is that one common response I see to this when like, people complain to me on social media, and I say, well, I'm kind of over caring where the games are, and I've just been waiting for Xbox to get good games for 10 years, and they finally have them. And people say, well, then we need somebody to keep Sony in check. Like, well, consumers will do that. If arrogant Sony comes back and makes $700 consoles the norm and doesn't ship enough great games, well, the market will respond to that. And then if Microsoft keeps making great games and keeps making good hardware with Game Pass on their hardware being appealing, then, well, maybe people would come back to Xbox eventually. But it's been a long road to get here, again, of Microsoft's own doing, but it may end up kind of working out in the end.
If the console wars are over, it ended with the best possible outcome, right? Like, all three platforms can remain viable, and no one has to go out of business, and no one has to exit the hardware market altogether. Max, well, what do you think PlayStation is thinking of when they think about Nintendo and Xbox today? Think they're still worried about them?
I don't think so. I mean, I wouldn't presume to know what a big faceless corporation is thinking at any given time, but I will say that they're riding high. The PlayStation 5 is selling just fine. We've kind of seen that Sony does have that wonderful, charming PS3 era hubris, rolling out the PS5 Pro, not really justifying its existence, but being like, here, it's $700 anyway, buy one. We haven't really seen much of them in the way of games. I don't know. Just speaking personally as a consumer, like, I'm kind of much more excited about what Microsoft's been showing off, because they've been showing off a lot more stuff, and there's been a steady stream of new things coming to the platform. But again, like, it's at the end of the day, we care about these things because they play games, and where you're playing them is kind of incidental. I think we have this sort of schoolyard mentality of looking back at which is better, Nintendo or Sega, and I don't know, fast forward a few years and you get Mario and Sonic at the Olympics together, and Sega bowed out of the hardware department entirely. And it's interesting because you do see companies like, again, Microsoft, predominantly software company, but they make hardware. Sony, predominantly consumer electronics company, but they make software. There's a lot of overlap there. And you see a lot of companies dipping in and out of that kind of stuff. And I mean, publishers we talk about today, like Bandai, SNK, they both made, handhelds or consoles over the years. Atari, we started out being a big name brand console a bajillion years ago, and then it became a software brand. It's funny that the whole idea of an Xbox is that it's short for a direct Xbox, which is another word for a gaming PC. And the closest thing to Sony sort of putting their stuff on an Xbox is to release it for PC, which they're doing. And I don't know. I could see a future where Xbox is sort of farming their stuff out, but still still making Xboxes because they're great. I guess I don't really see a world where Sony is like, yeah, Gran Turismo on Nintendo Switch. But who knows? They made a Horizon Lego game, so go figure.
Do you think there's anything to this idea that PlayStation needs a direct competitor to keep it in check, to keep arrogant Sony from coming back?
I think Sony will always be a little bit arrogant. I think that there's if you go back in the origins of the company, they were, Texas Instruments basically came out with, what do you call them? Transistors for radios. And at the time, you could buy transistors from Texas Instruments, but Sony was like, we'll take the patent and do it our way. And so they licensed this design from them. I mean, you look at Sony's business model for movies. They tried to make their own Spider-Man universe without Spider-Man. There's a certain stubbornness that comes with this company, and sometimes it pays off and sometimes it doesn't. But, you look back and you've got, the memory stick duo, the mini disc on one hand, and then, on the other hand, you get like Blu-rays and DVDs, which Sony had a hand in. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
It seems like the big hardware manufacturers, they can try for a few generations, but if it's not working for them, they have to pivot. They have to do something. And Nintendo did this with the Wii, right? Like, ever since the NES, their market was shrinking. Every new console sold fewer and fewer units. So they just, and also traditionally they had tried to meet their competitors toe to toe, like on that level of, big AAA, big budget games, sophisticated. Like when Metroid Prime came out for the GameCube, that was the best looking console game that had ever been released. But they realized they could not compete with PlayStation or Xbox on that level anymore. So they released the Wii, which was only nominally more powerful than the GameCube, but of course ended up having huge mass market mainstream appeal because of its very simple to pick up, motion controls, and then family living room multiplayer games like Wii Sports and whatnot. So anyway, that's all to say. Xbox has reached that point. They tried since the Xbox One, to make this work, and now I think, Ryan, they figured out their pivot. Like they figured out how they can remain relevant and not have to close the Xbox brand altogether. They can just become more of like a gaming brand that's available, like they say, wherever you want to play. It's still, you're playing an Xbox game, even if you're playing it on your PlayStation 5. Ryan, as someone who's covered Xbox for, a lot of years now, is there anything bittersweet about that to you? That they're not, maybe not a direct competitor to Sony anymore, and they've sort of changed into a different thing?
I guess maybe on some level there is, because there's that sort of like, oh yeah, here comes. Maybe it's my penchant. Like, I grew up a Mets fan. Now I'm a Diamondbacks fan. I drove a DeLorean for a long time, so I have this sort of natural propensity to cheer for the underdog, to root for the underdog. And Xbox came in, and they were absolutely the underdog in the console, in the video game space, in the console space specifically. And so I guess, yeah, maybe there's that little piece of me that's like, oh yeah, well, the system's still here, the games are still great, but you can play them on other devices now. But mostly though, and this could just be me getting older and not having the energy for the especially in the social media space of 2025. It does come back to, I'm just happy that they're consistently shipping big games that are also really good, and that really is all I want. I want my Xbox handheld that Phil has teased for a while, so I can go play them wherever I happen to be. Which all that's going to be is it's just going to be a PC. It's just going to be a Windows PC. So if people want to play Gears of War E-Day on PlayStation 6, cool, because that means as long as crossplay is a thing, which we do need to give Microsoft credit. We have here on the show before, but it's Microsoft gets the lion's share of the credit for making crossplay on consoles a thing. They dragged Sony kicking and screaming into that. So if I can play Gears of War E-Day with my friends who are on PlayStation 6, and I'm on either my Xbox or my Xbox handheld or my PC, whatever the case may be, and we're playing together, that's all I'm really looking to do. So I guess I'm not that sad, to answer your question.
Well, it does seem like you're feeling pretty good about the future of Xbox, but I just have to wonder, like the whole thing about the console wars, going back to Nintendo versus Sega, is that for better or for worse, gamers do tend to feel very attached to whatever console it is that they prefer to play on. They feel like they have to defend it, they have to champion it. It really feels like something. It's like part of their identity. And I just wonder, without hardware that they're really focusing on, will it be harder for Xbox to sort of engender that sort of kind of rabid fan base that game companies traditionally have?
It already is. You're already seeing there's a lot of apathy out there towards Xbox as a brand, and the sales reflect that, right? So I almost wonder if I would flip your question, Damon, and ask that of Sony. Like if there's no, if Xbox games are coming out on PlayStation and Nintendo has zagged and is, as you said, they're not competing with Sony on a sort of production value game budget level, and they're just going to make Nintendo games, which is great. We all love those. They've continued to excel in ways that Sony and Microsoft have not. So if Sony's kind of going to be it as far as if they're going to be kind of alone in the PC in the console space, I would almost wonder if people are going to still have that same fiery enthusiasm as to identify themselves as PlayStation gamers, or if it's just going to be, I'm playing. It's just like a default thing, like, I'm playing it on my PlayStation, and that's cool.
Yeah. Max, what do you think?
I mean, it's really funny when you zoom out because, you know, Sony's taking their first party stuff and they're putting it on other platforms, namely PC. And in order to run those games on a PC, you need a copy of Windows, which Microsoft owns. So it's sort of just, I don't know. It's hilarious. It's a riot. I hope that it comes down to like saying what console you play games on doesn't tell me anything about you as a gamer or what kind of a person you are, what you're interested in. It's just, I don't know, arbitrarily picking a team, which was really fun in third grade, you know, when it's like about Mario and Sonic fighting or whatever. But like you reach a certain point and games are too expensive to make on just one platform. Put them out for everywhere. Like make it so that people can, you know, studios can sustain a business and that more people can play the games. They can play them together. I don't, you know, not to get all, you know, hippy dippy about it or anything.
Yeah. Well, viewers, let us know what you think down in the comments. Are the console wars over? If they are, everyone can be a lot nicer to each other in the comments going forward, which I'm sure is what will happen. So we know all future Xbox games will be coming to PS5. Our poll for you to vote on for next week is what Xbox game do you want to play on your PS5 next? You want Avowed, maybe Halo Infinite, a Gears of War, or a Starfield? Make sure to vote at IGN.com the day this episode goes live, and we'll share the results with you next week. Just like we can with last week's poll, we asked who had the best early 2025 showcase. We're talking about Xbox's Developer Direct or the PlayStation State of Play or Nintendo's reveal of the Switch 2. And the winner by just a hair was Xbox. They had almost 37%, and the PlayStation State of Play received 34%. So that shows some a little bit of enthusiasm for the Xbox brand right there. Good to see. And that's going to do it for this edition of Next Gen Console Watch. Thank you to both Ryan and Max. Thank you to everyone working behind the scenes to make this episode possible. My name is Daemon. We'll be back next week with more on the latest gaming hardware news. We'll see you then.